I start working with U.S. Army and Kandahar Airfield. I start my career as a translator with the Army and ongoing duties. So then I transferred to Kabul because of because I request to transfer me to the Kabul because my family were there, and it was a kind of hard for me to travel to Kandahar, even back to Kabul, because the flight was very expensive, or even the road was not good enough. The Taliban was everywhere, so that's why I scared and transferred myself to Kabul. Then I start working with the legal department, which they provide legal supervision to the MOD, Ministry of Defense. And that time till September 2020, I was working with the department. And then because of COVID, they said you have to stay at home and work from your house, like a remotely. We have done some works. Then in November 2020, I have released from my job. And during this time, my supervisors provide me a letter of recommendations, some official documents to provide to apply for SIV. When I applied for SIV, it took a while to receive approval, and some official documents I have provided which they have requested for. And finally, I have received my approval, and then I provide the documents what the embassy needed. And my visa is issued.
I will be back.
Sorry?
It's okay. Continue, Ashiqullah. Keep going.
Okay. So my visa issued on 11 August 2021. So I was very happy because I was looking a bright future to my family or to my kids. I was very happy. So during this happy moments, we saw the Taliban start attacking on some provinces. So while they start attacking on the provinces, I was worried about my destination or my situations, because we were working with the US Army, and my neighbors or even some of my friends knows my situation, that I was helping the government of United States. So before actually I applied for IOM, IOM said, and during 15 days we will book a ticket for you and you can go to buy a commercial flight. Before my flight prepared, the Kabul is, I mean the Taliban come near to the Kabul cities. So my concerns are, I lose my, controls, and I see day by day the Taliban is capturing the cities. And I didn't think that one day they will collapse Kabul and they will overtake the Kabul. So I was watching news that says the Taliban will tomorrow come to the center of Afghanistan. And I never imagined that moments what was happening to me. I just ran to my father and say, Papa, the Taliban is coming, what should I do? And my father hugged me and said, no worries, we have a God, we will see what's gonna happen next. So tomorrow, when all night I didn't sleep, and I'm just counting the minutes, what's going to happen to the center, people who's living in the center. So when the Kabul is collapsed, and I was trying to get out from Afghanistan. I saw news like the U.S. Army are trying to relocate the people or move the people who work with them from HKIA. So I was also one of the person trying to reach airport and show up there to take me with them. So the first day when I just took my passport and said to my wife, I will go to the HKIA Hamid Karzai Airport. So I just took my passport and my visa and give to my father, because my father was elder, had a beard, and I said, if the Taliban is searching you, they're gonna not search you because you're older. If they are searching me and find a visa or passport on me, they're gonna not let me go and they will take me. So then when I arrived to the airport main gate, there was a huge people trying to go outside of the country. So when I arrived to the gate, I see I can't reach the gate because huge people are waiting to enter inside of the airport, and the Taliban was firing on the people to say, go away from the airport. There is no flight for you. And moment and by moment, my situation was good, worse. So I went to next to the Talib and I said, my mother is inside of the people who is inside of the airport, and she is not feeling good. She injured. I just make us excuses for him. And one of the Talib said, what your mother is doing inside of the airport? I said, my mother, I tried to reach the airport. So that was the only point that I make excuses for them to let me in. So one of the Talib said, okay, let him go in. And the other Talib said, no, you are not allowed to go inside. I said, please, I have to go and find my mom. And the Talib just hit me by word and say, go away from the airport. You are not allowed to go inside. So I actually returned back with my father home and waiting or counting the moments what's going to happen next. So next day, my cousin called me, like they saw some people is entering from the south gate of the airport, and you have to go there. And also the US government announced that the gate will be open for those people who has the official documents like a visa, passport, or green card. So I was also going with my cousin or my father, and I didn't took my wife and my kids because there were a huge people who was waiting outside and showing different documents that we are also eligible to go outside of the country. So during the way, my father said, you have to call your wife, and she needs you as well, because she's also disappointed at this time. You have to take her. And I call my brother, please take my wife and my kids with you and bring it to the south gate. We will see what's going to happen next. So when I reached the south gate, so there were huge people are trying to go inside or pushing to go inside, but only the Americans or the people who's working under their direction, they said, like, the people can go to the United States, those who have a documents, official documents, but everybody tried to reach the airport. So by very hard situation, by pushing the people, I reached the gate and I show my passport to the soldier. And the soldier said, no, you are not allowed to go in. Only the green cards and passports holders can go to the airport, and we will take those people. And I said, sir, I have a visa issued by the US embassy. And there was a sergeant he said, show me your visa. I show him my visa, and he said, okay, you can come inside. And during this entering to inside of the gate, I asked him, I told him, like, my wife is also waiting outside for me, and what's gonna happen to her? And he said, just go, come inside, we will take care of your kids. When we are talking on this subject, so the firing war start, because the the special forces who's working for the U.S. Army, but made it from Afghan people, they come are trying to enter the gate, and they start firing on the people to just remove the rush people and open the gate. So one of the person next to me get injured, and I was kept inside of the gate. And I called to my brother, just take my wife and go back to home. They cannot come inside because there is a huge people. They should maybe die or maybe get injured. So during our communicating, my brother said, I already enter your kids and your wife inside of the gate. I say, in what gate? So my brother said, there is a big, another main gate, the Fatah سفرية قتيت شوي Fatah. I think Fatah is not.
No, I'm here. قتيس كذا بكشيز ميجا بخلمك اللوارة ميجا.
So the first brigade, or the سفرية كيشيز ميجا بخل 01 brigade, I think.
01.
Yeah, 01 brigade, the special forces brigade, enter to the gate, and مردم ای چیز کردن دیگه، برهم زدن، دور ساختن نشان.
Do you want me to translate for you?
Of course, yeah.
Are you comfortable? If you're comfortable speaking English, that's fine. If not, I'm here to help you in any way I can. So.
Okay. So then, during the firing, so some of the people entering from the main gate, I saw my oldest daughter, and I said, I'm here. And she ran to me with my wife, and we will come inside of the main terminal. So in the main terminal, they scan our documents, and they said, wait here for the aircraft. I will make it shortly because we don't have enough time, I think, as my story is big. So I will make it a little bit shorter. So we are waiting inside of the aircraft, and 5:30 in the afternoon, we start our flight to the destination of Qatar, and we arrived almost 8:30 to the Qatar. In Qatar, the U.S. Army helped us to go inside of a big hangar. They prepare the place for the people those who evacuated from Afghanistan. And this main hangar, they provide everything for us. Shower stuff, everything what we had, we needed, they provide us. I really appreciate it. They help a lot, and you know the air or the temperature was very high, and they were trying to help people, and they were sweating too much because they drink a lot of water, and the temperature was high of the place, so they help a lot. So then they said, we will take you to the people who has an official document. Tonight we want to take him to the United States. We were very happy, our chances working. So actually they scanned our document and said, we will take you to the flight. And then they took us to one of the army base back in Qatar, almost 45 minutes away from the airport. So we were stay there for 6 days. So 3,500 people are every day waiting in the line for the breakfast, for the lunch, and for the dinner. And the weather was very hot, so the kids, so the priority was for the women, for the children, and for those people who had disability. So I had a kid, so I said, give me a bag of MRE. I don't want to go inside because it's too hot, and you know, my kid is little. So one of the army persons said, okay, I will give, yes.
I'm going to have you, we're going to pause you here. And then when we come back to you in the next round, I want you to talk about being in America, the trip to America, and then getting settled. For people who may not have caught it, he was saying that they went to Qatar or Qatar, which is not far. It's on the Arabian Peninsula. Very, very, very hot at this time of year. So thank you so much, Ashikola. And I want to say, I'm not going to name any names, but there's somebody here in the audience today who actually helped with the paperwork to get Ashikola to the U.S. So we're really proud to have him or her in the audience. Next, we're going to move to Ms. Deirdre Giblin, who is an attorney at the Massachusetts Law Reform Institute. She's specialized in immigration law for over 20 years with a focus on asylum and refugee law. And from 2008 to 2017, she was appointed as the American Immigration Lawyers Association New England Pro Bono Liaison, where she monitored compliance at Logan Airport of the Federal District Court injunction against the 2017 Muslim ban, and also the Haitian Temporary Protective Status Clinic Initiative in response to the 2010 earthquake in Haiti. We are so lucky to have her also as a board member at the Network for Social Justice, an amazing resource. And quickly about the MLRI, the organization where she works now. They provide statewide advocacy and leadership in advancing laws, policies, and practices that secure economic, racial, and social justice for low-income people and communities. So take it away, Deirdre.
Thank you, Karen. And thank you so much, Ashikola. You are definitely our guest speaker tonight, and I think everyone could take this hour and a half and listen to you and learn more about your journey. And so thank you so much for sharing with us tonight.
You're welcome, madam.
Yeah, and I know Karen said she wants to get back to you because I know a lot of people on this call would love to know, how many children you have and how your first days in America are going. So it'll be good when she gets back to you. So I have the little bit of the boring section, which is to just take 2 minutes, and then we're going to move on to our other speakers, just to give a little context to who are the people who are arriving and what is this process that people are hearing about. It's sort of a mini legal lesson, and it's just so that a lot of you on this call want to help with the families that are arriving and the individuals, and that's what our speakers tonight are going to talk about, their organizations and how you can get involved and what kind of thing you're going to do. And just so that you go into it with a little clarity about how are these people getting in to the United States? Generally we have 3 immigration routes to come. You come through family, you come through employment, or you come through humanitarian means. So this airlift obviously falls in that 3rd category of humanitarian. Like Ashikola talked about, he was already in process through a special immigrant visa for people who work with our military and other organizations over in Afghanistan. So there were some people that maybe could have come here before this airlift. But as many people on this call know, for the last 4 years, we really have not processed a lot of immigration. So family, employment, and humanitarian immigration during the last administration was really shut down. So I asked to do a couple of slides because I'm a visual person. So just to let you know, most of the people arriving and getting processed, the primary people were people like Ashikola, who were already in the special immigrant visa process. They were waiting. He was very lucky, as he said. His visa actually got processed right before the chaos erupted. And those persons are, through that visa, are considered lawful permanent residents. That's a green card. And then they're on a path to citizenship. It's usually 5 years of a wait to get citizenship. And other people are coming in through other statuses. So for those of you working with people over the next few months or years, they might have different statuses than what Ashikola talked about. I want to clarify for everyone, though, the question, which is, aren't all of these Afghan arrivals refugees? Don't they qualify for that? So the refugee is an international definition that was created by the United Nations after World War II, after the terrible Holocaust. And that, so anyone who is arriving who qualifies under that definition is a person who's outside of their country, who's unable or unwilling to return home to their country because they've been persecuted or they fear future persecution on the basis of their race or their religion or their ethnicity or their political involvement or opinion, or because they belong to a special particular social group. So many of the Afghans would qualify as a refugee definition, but they are not entering our country through the refugee law of America because Congress did not designate them as such. That might change, they might be designated. But so for right now, this slide shows us the 4 main ways that people are coming in. And the 4th one is the catch-all, which is anyone who's coming in without a visa and doesn't have other things coming in, they're being paroled into our country, which is emergency means we've used for Haiti. We did an airlift out of the Congo. We did an airlift out of Liberia. We have people at our southern border coming up through Central America. Parole is an ability to allow people into the country and then process while they're here. And that process might include asylum, which is another word a lot of people hear about in the news. And we'll see how that goes in for people who are arriving, if they need to even look at asylum. Laura, if you could do the next slide. So I just also wanted to clarify that this new law that came through, that even though people are not coming in through a refugee law and the processing that often happens when there is a civil, what they call crisis or disaster, like what we just saw in Afghanistan, the Appropriations Act at least designated the parolees as eligible for refugee benefits. And that is a big win, because even 8 weeks ago, you're going to hear from our speakers and their organizations were looking around for charity donations, which they still are, but to a larger extent. Now, at least there'll be some federal benefits for all of the parolees that are coming in through Afghanistan, which includes a small amount of cash benefits for a few months. Very, very difficult to ever get cash benefits under any of our welfare laws. And health benefits will be provided in most states on a basic level, English as a second language classes, and employment assistance, as well as agency assistance. So that's really great news in terms of having a little support for the great organizations that are going to be really working on this resettlement. And my last slide, Leora, I think is the next one. It's just to clarify for everyone working with the folks over the next hopefully months that you contribute to any of the families that are arriving, that there's all these different designations of what qualifies someone for health insurance. And the last slide shows as well that Massachusetts in particular is very comprehensive and very generous in our health insurance. So that is very good news for us. And I wanted to also clarify, there's a lot of legal assistance available. During the Q&A, we won't be talking about any individual cases tonight, so no hypotheticals about what could be done for people. That would be offline. We won't do our Q&A with that. And I'm going to turn it over to our other speakers to get to the good stuff about what everyone on this call could do starting tomorrow to help with this Afghan resettlement. Thank you.
That was so helpful in situating everything. Our next speaker, we're now going to move over to the resettlement part of the evening. Our next speaker is Marianne Boswell. She is the founder and president of LexRAP. That's the Lexington Refugee Assistance Program. It's a 501c3 nonprofit organization which helps refugees to settle in the U.S. and to become productive and well-adjusted members of the community. The mission of LexRAP is to support and assist refugees and asylum seekers into American society. This assistance includes a support network for housing, food, clothing, transportation, healthcare, education, especially English, employment, legal aid, and socialization. Beneficiaries of this assistance must have received or be legally seeking permission to live in the U.S., either temporarily or permanently. And you can tell just by that list alone the formidable task that Marianne and all of the people who are helping with relocation have right now in this situation. So over to you, Marianne.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, my video situation here is I am looking at my computer, but I look like I'm not. So thank you for this opportunity. And, you know, we obviously are next door neighbors to Winchester, and there actually is a family that is involved with LexWAP that lives in Winchester. LexWAP is 100% volunteer organization that currently is supporting 76 people who are refugees or asylum seekers, as Deirdre was explaining. We do all kinds of things to support the families. We mentor, we tutor, we drive them. Generally, we take over where a resettlement ends, and we stay with the families for the long run. We are partnering with Accentria for this Afghan crisis, and we are only one of now 20 or more community-based organizations planning to take at least a family, if not more than one family. Our plan at the moment is we're going to host one Afghan family. We have a host family, and we will be surrounding that host family with volunteers for any number of ways. We will need to both support the family coming and support the host family in Lexington. What we have found, which is really important, is that working with our refugees is an enriching process, not only for the individuals volunteering, but also for the community. And a lot of what we have done is based in the community. So we have had community dinners. We have had community laptop drives where we take donated laptops, refurbish them, and give them to refugees. We've done coat drives and other things like that. And our whole goal is not just to make the families feel welcome and part of our community, but also make our, help our communities understand that these are our neighbors. And we all came to America for a better life. And that's, then you put on top of that fleeing violence and persecution. And these people are particularly deserving of a hand held out to help. 100% of the donations that are given to LexWrap go directly to the families. And we do things like give gift cards at the beginning of the school year. This year, we gave every child and every person in school a $100 gift card. So for a family of 4, that was $400. That's an important contribution. And we also give donation of gift cards at other times of years. We are particularly interested in helping people retrain and go back to school. So that's kind of the sum of it. We're really excited about working with Accentria, and I'm happy to turn this over to Amy.
Amy, I'll do a brief introduction of you and Accentria and then turn it over to you. So Amy Mitchell is the Chief Community Services Officer at Accentria Care Alliance. She joined in June of 2021. Quite a start to her career, bringing with her over 25 years of experience serving people ranging from individuals with disabilities to those with psychiatric needs and those impacted by the child welfare system. So a Century of Care Alliance empowers people of all backgrounds to rise together and reach beyond life's challenges. They use an innovative client-centered care model to help vulnerable individuals and families in transition move forward and thrive physically, intellectually, socially, spiritually, and economically. They also have a large refugee and asylum resettlement program. So over to you, Amy.
Great, thank you so much. It's so amazing to see you all here this evening. I think at every stage of this journey, I've always been struck by the notion that you don't really live mission until it's hard to figure out how to do that. And taking a refugee resettlement program that had been decimated over the last administration with layoffs and gaps and infrastructure being reduced, and turning it around to ramp up for one of the largest humanitarian crises that we've seen probably since the Vietnam evacuation, has certainly been humbling. But every time I get on one of these calls and I realize I'm not alone, I'm like, I sort of exhale, right? We're going to figure this out. I love the legal briefing, by the way. There's never enough times that I can hear it for it to sink in. Because, you know, I do like to play a lawyer on the weekends, but only on the weekends. So not in the weeknights. It's true. I joined a Century of 4 months ago and was kind of just cruising along, listening to people, trying to understand how we could rebuild this program when everything started to deteriorate in Afghanistan. One of the things that I was really privileged to do, and one of the things that I feel is so critical, was that I listened to our staff who had arrived in the country as a refugee. I listened to what it felt like to them. They felt like as if they had this sort of, you know, tattooed on their forehead forever, right? Leaving their country, evacuating their country, being persecuted in so many ways was an attempt to strip them of their dignity. And even though we had people who had been here in the country for 10, 15 years, that process and that moment was still palpable enough to bring a team of people to tears collectively. I'm really grateful to have staff that have all arrived with this lived experience of what it has looked like. And what it did is it led me to really think through, how is it that we're doing our work? What has traditionally happened is that someone arrives at an airport and the pre-arrival team meets them, picks them up, brings them to an apartment, maybe spends about 24 hours or so getting them settled, making sure that all of their medical and emergency needs are taken care of, that they have some pocket money, that they have a culturally, and in our case, culturally home-cooked meal that provides them comfort, and start orienting them to the apartment and safety and whatnot. And then they're told you're going to meet your case manager. And now another new person shows up, and that's their case manager. And because of the ways that things are funded, sometimes things get really reduced to checklists, right? Look at the paperwork. Yes, we looked at the paperwork. Did we do this? Yes, we looked at this. Did we do this? And it's not that these people don't want to do it differently. It's that the way the funding has been structured and the way the process is set up has really resulted in a process that is not very warm. And so then you get a couple of visits from your case manager. Maybe you can call them. And then before you know it, you're also assigned over to your employment specialist who's going to help you get a job, because you've got to get a job and you've got to get a job now, right? We only have a 90-day window to help people adjust from evacuation to fully being able to stand on their own feet. And it's really somewhat ridiculous. I'm typically not a terribly judgmental person, but I just don't understand. It doesn't make sense to me. And then what happens is this family, this individual that we have maybe kind of sort of supported, we then transition them off to a group like Marianne's and said, here you go, right? This is now yours. We've done our 90 days of work. I am being a tiny bit sarcastic in all of this. And those that aren't fortunate enough to be able to connect with a group like Marianne's, what we see, you know, often continue to live in a state of poverty. We see folks becoming homeless. We see things just falling apart. And so we decided to try to do it a little bit differently. And what we are doing is that we're launching a model called the Neighborhood Support Team. And this is the model that Marianne is going to be doing with us. We're not 100% sure how it's going to work, but there's nothing like welcoming 500 evacuees to New England to kind of test a disruptive model to see if it serves people better. So our goal is to actually have folks arrive to somewhat of a transitional setting. We know that this process has not enabled people to really talk about who they are and what their hopes and dreams are in coming to the United States, because it certainly wasn't what they were planning perhaps 2 months ago. And so we would be in this transitional phase. We would meet with folks. We would hear what their hopes and dreams are for themselves, for their families. We would learn more about their tribal affiliations, more about what their needs are. And then we're working with neighborhood support teams that are comprised of anywhere between 10 to 20 people that have gone through a vetting process that we are training. And we would present the different families and the different towns and the different communities to the family. So they get to actually pick, right? They get to have a sense of agency in terms of where they're going. Perhaps they'll look at a team. We have a team called Team Apple Country. It's very cute. They made a little PowerPoint of themselves. And so Team Apple Country has a couple of software people on it. It has a couple of educators. They enjoy going apple picking. This is not surprising. But then we would sit with the family that is arriving where we go through these details and create a little meet and greet and create kind of a match, and then transition the family to the neighborhood support team. And what the case management team would do is we would be in the background. We would be providing support. We would be checking in. We would be providing guidance. Our relationship is not what's the most important. The relationship with the community and their neighborhood is what's most important. So by doing this, we're trying to get out of the way a little bit and make sure that we're really building the relationships that are going to matter over the long run. The other thing that we're doing with this is that we have been recruiting and training what are called cultural mentors, in this case, Afghan Americans. And it has been a really humbling process to stand shoulder to shoulder with them and understand what this journey is like. The woman who is leading our effort has given a presentation called "These Are My People." And it helps remind us all that for those that are already here in the United States, these are their people, these are their families, these are their relatives. This is traumatizing for the folks already here as well as the folks arriving. And so the cultural mentors are there every step of the way to help make sure that we are paying attention to the subtle differences, paying attention to the importance of when you meet with someone to have a pot of tea available, to be able to sit down and to share that and to have that sense of community. And so each neighborhood support team is going to be paired with a cultural mentor. It's not intended to in any way take away from neighborhood support teams' individual responsibility to learn about the culture, to educate themselves, but it's there really as a consult. Afghanistan, as Ashkala could tell you, is extraordinarily diverse, right? We all sort of look at it and we say, oh, everybody's just one way. And it's just not the case. It's actually quite diverse. And to be able to have these cultural experts, these cultural brokers in place, we think is going to be able to smooth out what might otherwise be somewhat of a wrinkled process. As you heard earlier, when we were first asked to say, how many families can you support? How many people can you support? We said, what do you mean there's no benefits? We started fundraising. And our goal was to raise approximately $10,000 per family for the first 3 months to be able to offset expenses. And so we've been doing a tremendous amount of fundraising. The neighborhood support teams are also engaging in fundraising, and we've had some foundations who provided us with a match, right? So a neighborhood support team like Marianne's gave us $5,000 and we matched their $5,000 so that they now have $10,000 to support families. The notion that folks are now eligible for benefits means that we're going to have a greater chance of moving people from a vulnerable place to a place where they can thrive, and doing it in a really, really thoughtful way. And so that's our big effort, neighborhood support teams. I know I've only got like 5 minutes and I'm probably a minute over right now. What I would also say is that we are also bringing all sorts of volunteers, all sorts of donations to the cause. And we haven't always been able to respond as timely as I would have liked, because truly these past 5 weeks have been a little bit more intense than pretty much anything I've done in my career. So we are now at the phase where we're organizing our volunteers. We have a couple people that are coming in to give us 15 hours a week of just sheer project management, right? Because you can tell we are flying the plane while we're building it. I'm really hoping for a cockpit soon and some fuselage. And I think that we're getting really close. This past week, we have assured or said to our VOLAGs that we will receive up to 43 people at this point. And they're all in different constellations. We have single moms with kids. We have a single mom with 5 kids arriving on Monday. We have assured a family of 9, 2 parents and 7 kids. We have assured some single individuals and some other family constellations. So we are definitely getting ready for people to arrive, and we want it to be in as dignified, as respectful and supportive a way as possible. So that's sort of my spiel. I'll hold on there because I'm sure that the discussion will be rich.
Thank you so much, Amy. Ashikola, I would like to come back to you and have you sort of take up where you left off. And I think everyone is really anxious to hear, what was it like to land in America? You know, this new country. You've lived in, you work closely with a lot of Americans, so you got to know Americans. But what has been the biggest surprise or shock for you? What has it been like? But also, what kind of support are you getting and not? What has it been like for your family? You told me about your living situation, enrolling your kids in school. So please tell us a little bit more about what you think people would like to know about you're coming to America, and what your life is like now. So we'll give you about another 6 or 7 minutes to tell us how things are. I know that's not enough time at all.
Actually, I don't have a word to appreciate or to show my feelings to the Americans. They are awesome. They are very, kind people. I love it. They changed my life. I never seen a life like this back in Afghanistan. So my life and my family lives and other Afghans, like they work for the governments, was I never imagined I may be have a life like this. I really appreciate my supervisors, which they helped me to get out from Afghanistan to arrive to the United States, or the people who support me here. I really appreciate. As I'm really happy. They are supporting me very well, full support. They provide me like everything what I needed for my daily basis, or even they are trying to guide me more or find me more ways to settle very well. So the life is going normal for now. For the school, I already enrolled my kids in the school, so my daughter and my son can go to school, uh, and they are very happy because this was my dream, to change the life of my family, to see the bright future of my family. Actually, this is all because of the Americans who took it us out from the hell. The Afghanistan was not safe anymore for us. So actually, I love it. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, you guys. And when I arrived to Qatar, and from Qatar to here, fully support. Everybody loves. Everybody give me a good idea. They show me the way of the lives, or everything they provide me what I needed. I really appreciate it. Actually, I don't have a word, so God bless you guys.
So one thing I learned when I lived in Afghanistan is that Afghans are exceedingly polite and kind. Um, and Ashikola, I know that you're very grateful to America and Americans. And
you.
I know that the people on this call would like to hear the realities of what your life is like. You told me that you've lived in 3 or 4 different hotels now, and you really haven't gotten much support from your caseworker. You have only 3 months to find a job. So, and you were walking. I think you told me you walked 40 or 45 minutes so that from the hotel so you could enroll your kids in school. And I know people on the panel want to know how many children you have, where you're living, etc. So, we know that you don't want to seem like you're complaining, but we want people to understand what your situation is like now. So it's okay to be honest.
Of course. When I arrived to United States, the first of all, they handed over me to the IOM, and then IOM said, the IOM handled my case to the UNICEF. I mean, cross Red Cross department. I think that is yeah. So then IOM or the Red Cross handed my case to the social service. They said, for now you have to stay in the hotel. So they changed like a 3 hotel for me. I have 4 kids, 2 girl, 2 boy. So one after one, they changed the hotels for me. In the last hotel, which was 3 days ago, I wasn't there. So when I called to my caseworker, I know a huge families arrived from Afghanistan. They are super busy. I know, I feel this. So sometimes they're not answering to my phone, not answering to my messages. So I know I'm fully understand what they're doing. Actually, I'm also working from my home to handle my documents and even to do my paperwork. Actually, it's real. I'm walking 4 or 45 minutes from my house to from at that time when I was in the school to enroll my case, to get a doctor appointments, to take the vaccination paperwork, stuff like that was very hard for me. And still, it's a kind of uh, challenge for me because I don't have a car, and still I'm walking around taking appointments. I'm using the bus routes, but it's easy for me. And now I understand how to use the bus route and how to use the metro buses. So my supervisor back in the United States, she come to me and she helped me a lot. She provide me the bus smart card. I can travel whenever I want, but sometimes it's very hard because we are not reaching on the time. Sometimes it's getting late. Sometimes we're losing our appointment. When we are arriving there, they says, "Oh, you're late. Your appointment is not on the time." So this are kind of problems for me. Uh, so now I arrived to my house. I'm now in my home, and the people who was here helping me a lot of stuff, providing me gift cards, or even provide me food stuff. Now I'm really happy, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ashikola. Um,
Yeah.
I want to take the moderator's prerogative and ask a few questions of the panelists before I open it up to the rest of the audience to ask questions. Deirdre, I want to ask you quickly about. I want to ask you quickly to explain humanitarian parole and how that's working and how that's being used as the way to get people over now. And so, yeah, if I could just hand it over to you to briefly explain humanitarian parole and how it's used and what the legal definition is.
Sure, okay. And I'll take the second to clarify too. And I think Amy used the word VOLAG, and Ashikola was talking about his the maybe Red Cross that was helping him, which is probably International Rescue Committee. There are 8 resettlement VOLAGs in America, and they have different offices all over. Acentria is one of our main ones here in Massachusetts. So that's the term. VOLAG is the Refugee Resettlement Agency. I worked for one a long time ago, for a decade. So and in fact, we had the Afghanistan resettlement back in 99, 2000, 2001, the original, which is why we have a great Afghan community here in Massachusetts. So the parole, again, anyone who enters our country needs to go through a process, whether it's at the border where you have no documents and you're arriving, as many of us have seen in the news, or you're arriving through air and there you're coming into an airport. And so you need a document to enter, just like we do when we go to another country. And so the humanitarian parole is a specific area section of our law, 212B5, that talks about humanitarian parole, allowing someone to come into our country. And they use the word parole not in the criminal sense, but in the entry sense, that you're either admitted to our country or you're paroled. And admitted is when you have a status that you have an admission into our country. Parole is going to be a temporary status that just gives you a short amount of time to come in the country. It can be 3 months, 6 months, 1 year, whatever is designated, either at the border or through a larger law like we're doing for the Afghan community. And to get someone now who is in Afghanistan, such as Karen's friends and former coworkers, you file the humanitarian parole application here with our State Department. Normally, it would then get processed over in our embassy in the country that you're trying to parole the person in from. In our case, of course, our embassy is closed now in Kabul. So anyone who's going to get humanitarian parole will need to somehow get out of Afghanistan and access another embassy. So for example, some people in Afghanistan are trying to get across the border, any of their neighboring countries to go to. Anyone who is able to, there's a couple of airlifts, specific airplanes going to Ukraine, for example. And then once you're in a different country that has an operating US embassy, then you could go and access that parole. Humanitarian parole is basically a travel document. You file the actual travel document I-131 form. It is a $585 document for every single person, whether it's a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, or an adult. So as you can imagine, trying to get someone out of Afghanistan who has 7 children and a spouse, that's 9 applications times 585, potentially fee waivers, but those are very difficult. And so that's a whole nother area that people are looking at. So far, I know Acentria has filed over 100 humanitarian parole applications. We have a pro bono effort here in Massachusetts with 15 of the largest firms in Boston have signed up to do humanitarian parole through any Afghanistan family or neighbor, such as LexRap, or who have reached out through our senators' offices or our Congress offices, and they have also filed hundreds of humanitarian parole applications. Right now, nationally, none have been granted. I think there is getting to be queued up a lawsuit to push the State Department to either grant the parole applications or give some kind of policy guidance on what else could be done for many of these individuals who do get out of Afghanistan but don't come directly to the United States. I hope that's clear enough, Karen.
Yes, that's fantastic. But that is news to me that none have been granted yet. So everybody that's come over is coming on, has gotten SIVs or P2s?
No, so they're being paroled in out of the airlift. If someone is arriving, let's say Ashikola arrived, he had an SIV ready to go. If someone else arrived whose SIV, special immigrant visa application, was still in process, they don't have that visa. So when they arrived at any of our Air Force bases that were in Virginia or Texas, they were then granted parole through that process. So it's really a border issue of just like when the migrants from Central America or Haiti are coming up through our southern border, if they present themselves for asylum, they can get paroled into the country. So it's really CBP, Custom Border Patrol, that issues the parole. In this, because it was an airlift through air, it was mostly through the Department of State that was issuing parole to the individuals at our military bases. So anyone arriving now into communities would have some kind of either a temporary status, a parole status, or perhaps, as Ashikola said, a lawful permanent resident status because they've already gotten their visa granted. And as well, remember, because we have had an Afghan resettlement under the resettlement agencies back in 2000, 2001, after the Taliban had swept in the late 90s, we have family members here. So if someone was paroled in, those family members maybe could go through a family process so, and again, also asylum. We're hoping that we don't end up with thousands of people who need to go through the asylum process, because as many people on this call likely know, reading the newspaper, there is a very large backlog of years and years. There is a new part of the law that expedites Afghan asylum applications. So we're going to have to gear up for a big pro bono. We need lawyers to help people go through that process, because it's not an easy standard, although we would think it would be easy, that we would just grant asylum for sure out of this situation. But in practice, it doesn't really end up that way. So yeah, so everyone that will be meeting in Massachusetts, and that the people on this call will be helping through the partners presenting tonight, will have some sort of a temporary status, and then all the legal people who are helping will try to help figure out how to make it permanent if they're not already a permanent status through the SIV fully granted.
Great, great. Well, I have so many questions in my head, but I think I will just turn it over to the audience to ask questions. Please feel free to either just unmute your mic, or if you're a little shy, you can put it in the chat. So if there's anybody who has a question.
Remember that if you do want to speak up, perfectly fine. We are recording, so you will be recorded.
Thank you, Leora. Ashikola, I think you have a question.
My question is, this is also a kind of suggestions. Actually, once when the Afghan refugees coming to the United States, and when they trying to rent a house, they may provide a cosigner for a house, but most of them doesn't have this ability. They don't know nobody because they just escape. This was a big concern for me. Even nobody was, ready to be cosigner of mine. So one of the person who was the Uber driver was my friend. Now a kind of my friend. He helped me, and he become my cosigner. And it's very difficult situation for me, and even for those who they don't have a eligibility to take the rental house. So my question was this one. So if you please, make a notice on it, or maybe this what I have faced with. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah. Oh,
Ashikola, as just quickly, I'm the co-signer up here in Massachusetts. So yes, right, because of rental laws, landlords need to run background checks and credit histories and things like that. And Ashikola obviously doesn't have that. He's just been here 4 weeks. So what you do is you guarantor it and you have somebody co-sign it with you. I'm stunned that your Uber driver did that. That just, it scares me and it warms my heart at the same time, if that makes any sense. But we're also asking our neighborhood support teams to co-sign or guarantor that lease. And some of the money we're raising, we're really hoping to help pay for people's leases for a while, right? Like, it takes time to be able to get through this. So thank your Uber driver for me.
I have a question.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, Ash, what kind of work experience have you had? What kind of skill sets do you enjoy? What kind of work would you like to do? Have you thought about that?
Actually, I know English. I can use my English skill.
Good.
And I was working with different construction teams back in Afghanistan in from 2011 to 2016. And I was working with different logistic companies. So I can work as I had a different positions like a sales manager, safety officer, safety manager. So all my position was like for the safety. So I have different experience.
Have you managed people?
Sorry?
Have you managed people?
Yes. I have a experience like a social worker, like a social experience I have.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome, sir. Thank you.
I think the upshot to that, Ashifola, is there's a lot of jobs here right now in the United States. There's a lot of job openings. And so hopefully you can find somebody to work with down there so that you get the job that, is going to help you support your family and be something that you want to do. Any of the jobs that you just listed, there are job openings for. So we wish you luck with that. Maybe your Uber driver is going to help you out with this again, because I'm thinking that he might be your go-to guy.
Well, that is what Amy said. As part of the refugee benefits, you get an employment specialist. And for example, they will sit down, help someone do their resume, figure out their skills, access online, lots of job listings in Massachusetts. Hospitality is a really large one. If you speak English, even better. The hospitals here have all sorts of listings. And that's what the employment specialist does, is have it could be daily meetings, weekly meetings to help that person get a job. Normally, refugee benefits are up to 8 months. For the Afghans, it's only, as Amy said, 90 days, which 8 months is hard enough. 90 days feels very daunting, but that is what the employment specialist will help with. And I'm sure, as Marianne would say, any of her community people who themselves happen to be employment specialists, can add to that. Anyone on this call who has that kind of connections and information.
Thank you. Thanks, Deirdre, and thanks, Amy. We have a question in the chat about practical household goods, clothing, items, and toys, books for kids that are needed and can be collected. Amy, Marianne.
I think that each group is handling this a little bit differently, because each group is, some groups are renting apartments, in which case there is a need for a lot of different things. What we do in LexRap, frankly, and you guys in Winchester aren't very far away, household goods in Acton is a fabulous place to donate things, as is Mission of Deeds in Reading, because both of those organizations, when you have, with just a social worker's note, literally you can take someone shopping there with a truck and fill the truck with everything from dishes to furniture to lamps. So I highly recommend donating to Household Goods in Acton and Mission of Deeds in Winchester. For that reason, because like, you know, at the moment, my garage is entirely full with stuff for a family that's arriving here from Iraq. You know, it's like, we just can't do that. But Mission of Deeds and Household Goods do it really well.
I just want to note that I think there's a little bit of disconnect. There were people, unfortunately, Ashikola is in Northern Virginia. If you want to come up here, Ashikola, we can help you out. We're going to try and find some services and organizations in the Northern Virginia area that can help you. There's just a great social safety net here in the greater Boston area. I know that I was talking to another Afghan who's in Northern Virginia who arrived, who said they don't have beds, they don't have a TV, you know, his kids are asking him for our cell phones. And so it's just, you know, it's a slow process of trying to get those goods. But, you know, the basic goods, if you just think about it, if you just land here and you don't know anybody and you've been forced to leave your country, where do you start? And then on top of that, the clock is ticking and you have 90 days before the benefits that you are getting are shut off, and you need to start paying your rent and supporting your family, all while you're trying to get used to a new country. Luckily, Afghans are very helpful and gracious and help each other. So I know that Ashikola has landed on his feet and has people helping. We also have some patients at the end of the evening to benefit Amy's organization, Accentria, Marianne's organization, LexRap. And I am also trying to raise the funds for my colleagues and friends.
Karen, I think you got muted or your mic or something.
Oh, really? Okay. Can you hear me now?
Better.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry, I don't know what's going on with my microphone. I will just yell. Ann Sharp works as a professional organizer and helps clients downsize, and so that she can donate to those nonprofits. Yes, and if you look at your own closets and would like to downsize, or you know, need new bedding or whatever, there are going to be lots of refugees coming into Massachusetts. I know Accentria is in Worcester, so I know that a lot are arriving in Worcester. Is that correct, Amy?
So we're all over Massachusetts. They released the mile thing. So I was just like, okay, so I'm going out to Cape Cod, right? I go everywhere, right? So Bob, you said here, you know, some faith communities are interested in hosting a fundraiser. I'm sure that Marianne and I would, you know, be happy to come and talk. Marianne's experience is obviously much richer in terms of doing the actual work. My goal has been to disrupt it and figure out how to make it better.
So let me ask you both, Amy and then Marianne. I'll ask this question, and then you both can answer it. If there was a you know, fairy giving you 1 or 2 wishes, what would those be?
Go ahead, Marianne. Do you already know your wish?
Your housing.
I know. I was going to do that too.
An apartment. If someone, I mean, you know, some of the, so again, there are 20 community groups working with Accentria, and some of them have found, you know, someone, you know, who said, gee, you know, we're gonna move, downsize, and we'll donate our house for a year. I mean, that's amazing. we don't have that in Lexington right now. In Lexington, you know, we do have a semi-public housing authority, but, you know, there's a wait. There isn't housing for, I mean, everybody knows this. You know, people are complaining about no housing all over Massachusetts. So any kind of lead on an apartment is really, really what we need.
Know the size of your family, Marianne, yet?
No,
Okay.
we know that our host family has said that they can host a family for 6 months to a year, and that would be a 5-person family. So we know, I mean, that's, but we don't know who we're gonna get. We may get a family of 3.
You may get a family of 5, right? You might get 24 hours notice at the rate that these things are going, right? But hopefully we can do this just a little bit different than Ashikola's experience where, you know, as people arrive, we'll have them to one place and then get them to the next place where they can be for the next 6 to 8 months. I think it's important, Ashikola, I don't know what you think about this. Maybe it's just me and my craziness, but I think families being able to choose where they live and furnish it is an important step in the process, right? So to have those months where you kind of get your feet on the ground, you get a job, your kids are in school, everything, you're saving money, and then you can pick your own place to live. I think it's important, at least it's for me.
And to piggyback on that, Amy, that's really kind of how things have been going for the last many years with refugee resettlement, that hosting people is not the preferred way. That people really, particularly families that have been under this kind of stress, need to have their own living space. And hosting is the least positive way to welcome people into this country. But at the moment, with the housing shortage we have, it's what we're dealing with.
Right, and to give that some context, that's part of the reason why Massachusetts is not one of the top 20 places for resettling refugees. Our housing is just too high. Worcester, Centria, and West and North in New Hampshire with New England. I know some people on this call have been involved with them. You know, Boston, where I used to work, it just got too expensive to resettle people. They've done most people in New Hampshire. So the average refugee gets a family of 5, gets, or a family of 4, even $611. And so that's just not enough for a lot of rent. I have a family from the Congo who, with 2 kids, a synagogue in Brookline donated an apartment to them. And they're year number 5. They are paying rent, but it sure isn't market rate for the beautiful place that they live. But the synagogue, through the Refugee Immigration Ministry in Malden, which some of you on this call through the Congregational Church have been involved in helping families. So housing is a very large priority. And when the Syrian refugee resettlement happened, we really only had less than a dozen families resettled in Massachusetts in particular, because the housing, the benefits just don't enable them to become independent, which really is the goal. As Marianne said, people want to come and they want to have their own initiatives and take care of their own families. And while charity is wonderful, a lot of people, you know, would prefer not to feel like they're getting that. And the refugee benefits are government benefits. They're entitled to those benefits. There are no strings attached to those. They get them, they qualify. And so I think to Peter's point and Marianne's point and Amy, people want to get a job and they want to have their own home. Like Ashikola signing on his own home and get settled for their families.
I think my good friend Fatah has a question or a comment.
Oh, hi everyone. I'm also a refugee. I'm one of those lucky ones. I totally agree with everyone's comments here. Housing is very important. I understand that value. Also, along those comments, if we can find people in community who can also donate their cars, the one that they don't need, it will help them a lot to do their work, take their kids to school and get groceries. Also can use it as an Uber. So that will generate some income immediately. And also Massachusetts is definitely not in the top list of for immigrants. I was the lucky one. I went to start my journey in Idaho. It was awesome. And then I moved to Virginia. Thank you.
That's great.
Shaw and I worked together in 2003, so we have been friends for a very long time. One of my favorite people. So we have a few more minutes. Do we have maybe one last question or comment from the audience? Well, if not, I would like to take a moment. We will pop all of the contact information for Accentria and LexRap in the chat again. I am taking this moment to plug my own GoFundMe, which is for my colleagues. Two were my colleagues in Afghanistan from 02 to 03. I tried to apply for P2 visas for them. I just learned the other day that even though they worked for a USAID funded project, they were not working directly for the US, so they are ineligible for a P2 visa. So a month and a half later, I'm finding that out. And so now I am, and SIV visas, which they're probably even less eligible for, are backed up years in the pipeline. And the problem, which Deirdre might have touched on, is that you need to not only get a visa for a third country, you need to go live there for a year, at least a year, while your case is being decided, and support yourself in that country. But not only that, it's getting the visa to that other country is really hard. All of the consulates, or most of the consulates for other countries, are closed right now. So you can't get a visa for India or Pakistan or Iran, etc. And then you have to worry about getting to the airport. You got to know that the Taliban is guarding the airport. So there's the very dangerous trek to just get to the airport. So I am trying to raise $16,000 to get, as Deirdre said, it is, I thought it was $575 per person. It's $585 per person. Okay, so I guess it's $575. One of my families has 10 people, etc. So I think it's 18 people right now. I'm trying to raise the fees for, so any amount would help, and so I definitely appreciate that. I'm getting emails every few days. As I say, Afghans are exceedingly polite, so they're not pushy, but they're just sort of asking me how I'm doing and then asking if there's any news. And so it's really heartbreaking to not be able to have any news for them.
Hey, a quick question. Are you doing this through Massachusetts?
Am I doing it through Massachusetts?
Right. So are you doing it through a Massachusetts group? Because the resettlement agencies, we all got together and we put together a piece of legislation that's backed by several senators that has access to CARES money to offset the application costs.
That is very
So
good.
it's something to really track in terms of the numbers of folks, and and certainly like at our place, in our legal program, we're actively raising money to offset those exact costs. So, all is not lost.
Great. Well, I appreciate that. I would still appreciate any small donations that people might be able to afford.
Yes.
And Amy and Marianne, I will turn it over to you for your plugs.
Well, we, as I said earlier, 100% of any donations that LexRap gets supports our families. I also wanted to say, to help people understand this, During the last administration, many consulates across the world were downsized and some were closed. For example, right now, the Baghdad embassy is closed. The US embassy is closed. And you take that and then you layer on top of it COVID, and our State Department is years behind where it was before in staffing and in processing a lot of this stuff. So it's just, I mean, people are waiting 2 years to get a green card that used to take 6 months. It's just a difficult time. And any help that anyone can give or any donations, you know, these people really need help.
Hope, I think you lost your sound again.
Okay,
Oh, there you are.
Okay, I'm sorry. This is the first time I've ever heard of my mic not working, so I apologize. Thank you all so much for spending some of your evening with us and hearing about this situation. Thank you to all of the panelists, especially Ashikola for sharing your story, and we wish you the best of luck, and we will be in touch. And you know, thank you again for coming.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you to the Network for Social Justice.
Thank you.
For hosting this. And have a great evening, everybody.
Bye.
Everyone have a good night. Good
Take care.
evening. Thank you so much.
Bye, Ashikola.
Hi, how are you?
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye. Miss Karen,
Yeah.
do you hear me?
Yes, I hear you.
Fatat Sangela.
Hold on for a few minutes.
يا صبرك يا صودا قيش نور خلكم بلان كتروس استخدش خبر داوري او دا كيجي داري كاركيجي ام كني بلان كما تاسو زنجوه.
Say.
Karen, I'm gonna call each. I'm gonna make a conference call between us.
Okay.
Okay.
Oh, you can stay on.
It's being still recorded.
Oh, you're right. Here, I'm going to turn it off.